So I was just lounging around in lockdown with my majestic long Furby demon when an incredible idea hit me. I should make a hairless Furby. So I got straight on eBay and found a suitable subject, as well as some liquid latex and a few extra bits off AliExpress. When he arrived in the post, I put some batteries in him and he immediately started sneezing, which makes me think he's probably allergic to his own fur, so it's a good thing we'll be getting rid of that. Ugh, poor thing. To get that old stinky flea-ridden fur off, I'm cutting around the bottom of the fabric and snipping the plastic tie underneath. You'll need pliers for this, scissors don't really work. And I'm skinning him. This Furby has screws holding the fur onto the faceplate, so I'm just removing them. And carefully bringing the fabric over the ears without bending them too much. Snip that ear thread and it's off. Now I'm using my thread picker to remove the faceplate from the skin. Right, this bloody airbrush was driving me up the wall. It kept working for about 10 seconds at a time, then would clog up, and it took about 3 hours just to spray the blimmin' faceplate. But it does look lovely and smooth now. I want to also change the colour of his eyelids and tongue, so I'm using a teeny tiny screwdriver to remove all the screws so I can take the plastic shell off. I'm poking out the metal cylinder that's holding the eyes in place, and taking out this little screw between the ears at the back. Now the eyes should slide out from the side. I also want to change his eye colour later on, so I'm going to use this opportunity to remove the current ones. I'm removing his one remaining eyelash and clearing any glue residue off, and lightly sanding the area with a nail buffer to help the new paint adhere to the surface. Oh god, not the airbrush again. Wasn't too bad this time though. It's only a small piece, but still quite annoying. I also want to change the colour of his beak and his tongue, so I'm removing the cylinder that holds them in place, and removing the 3 parts. I still want the beak to be yellow, but I'm planning on making this Furby really pale, so I just want to tone down the bright yellow to more of a pastel-y eggshell colour. I already had a pastel that was the colour I wanted, so I rubbed it against some sandpaper to get a fine powder, and I'm using an eyeshadow brush to work it onto the beak. I then sprayed it with a fixative to keep it in place. It took a few layers to get the colour I wanted, and I'm pretty happy with the results. Now I'm going to move on to the tongue, so I want this to look absolutely disgusting. I'm first removing the original paint and varnish with acetone. My plan was to use sand to create some texture on the surface of the tongue, but I couldn't find any. Instead I found an old dusty St. Ives scrub in the bathroom and picked some of the walnut pieces out. I glued them on individually with a brush, and once they dried I gave the tongue a thick coat of glue to make sure they wouldn't just chip off. And like the beak, I dusted the colour on, using a few different tones of pink and red. I also gave it a glossy varnish to make it appear wet. I'm so pleased with it, the texture looks like a real disgusting lumpy tongue. Now all the parts are complete, I'm carefully putting him back together. I haven't given him new irises yet, but that can easily be done later on. Now his faceplate is on. I've noticed that some of the black inner plastic is visible and looks really obvious in contrast to the new, much paler face. So I'm removing the faceplate again so I can paint it. I've chosen more of a pink colour in hopes it will look like a waterline. I mean, I'm thinking now while I edit this that I should have given them a gloss varnish too, but never mind, it's too late, maybe next time. Regardless, I think they came out pretty well. My lovely partner 3D printed a custom skeleton for me. I'm having to do a few adjustments to make it all fit properly, and then securing it with Milliput and superglue. I'm also creating a spine for him. Once covered with latex, the bones should really stick out and create quite a gaunt appearance. I'm applying Milliput in separate sections so the button on his back can still be pressed. I've done test after test after test after test using this latex. And while I do think that the liquid latex was a good choice for this project, I'm having trouble getting a good smooth base for it. Many of my tests are bumpy or uneven in some way and just not how I want them to be. But I've had another idea which I think's gonna work really well. I ordered a bunch of this latex fabric which I'm going to use as a first layer. I can make templates from his original skin and then stick the different parts together with super glue. The liquid latex should adhere really well to this, so I should be able to build up the layers quite easily. So making templates went out the window straight away. I'm going in freehand instead. And using super glue is working even better than I anticipated. This is just a base layer, so it doesn't matter that it's see-through or if there are any uneven parts. This can be rectified later on. I really want those bones to stick out, so I'm paying extra attention to make sure they still look prominent with the skin layer. I'm loving how the bones are looking, but I was going for more of a gaunt look. Instead he's looking more emaciated, so I'm going to give him a bit more flab on his stomach. Now that's more like it. My vision is coming to life. I'm giving him a final coat or two of liquid latex mixed with a flesh tone paint to give him the colour that I want. And he is looking fabulous, but dried more yellow than I expected. So I will give him another coat of latex with a pinker hue, but first I'd like to give him some ears. To create his earpieces, I'm making paper templates from his original skin and using them to create a base for the new ears with the latex fabric. I'm super gluing 2 pieces together for each ear and using scissors to neaten the sides and cut away any excess fabric. I'm going to place these over the ear prongs. Using the original Furby skin as reference, I'm gluing the corner of each new ear to the Furby. I've mixed the latex with a pink pigment and I'm carefully framing the inner ear. And then painting the whole of the back of the ear. They needed a few layers to fully cover the surface, and I also gave the body a final coat to rectify the colour. The black ear slits are very obvious as there's no fur fabric there anymore to hide them. So I'm painting the visible black plastic with a pink acrylic paint. The time has come to give him some beautiful eyes, so I'm drawing around these glass cabochons which fit perfectly in his eye sockets. I'm using my Prismacolors to draw the design. I'm going for a really light blue colour. I think this will look incredible in contrast with his pink skin tone. I've cut them out and I'm now using a very small amount of clear glue to adhere the design onto the cabochons. Then using a tiny bit more glue, I'm inserting his new irises into his sockets. To complete the eyes, I found these amazing upper and lower white eyelashes on AliExpress. I've cut them down slightly to fit the area and I'm applying a thin layer of super glue to each lash line, then applying them directly onto the Furby's eyelids, being really careful not to get it in the actual eye. I'm so pleased with his eyes, I think he looks absolutely beautiful. After giving the bottom a quick coat of paint to match the skin tone, I'm going to work on his feet. My partner also 3D printed these dinosaur feet for me. They look a bit like chicken's feet and I think they'll suit him nicely. I'm mixing a light pink toned grey on my hand because I've lost my dish, and applying a base coat to the claws of each foot. I'm using this pearlescent pigment paint to give an iridescent finish. And I'm using the leftover latex I mixed earlier to coat the rest of each foot. I'm gluing them over the battery pack on the bottom, making sure they're in a spot near the centre that won't cause the Furby to topple over. Although I want him to be hairless, I think he'll look great with some odd little wispy bits of fur here and there. I thought mohair would be perfect for this, so I'm using clear glue to apply it in sections. Now I've got the hair where I want it and the glue has dried, I can start to trim away the excess hair. For some finishing touches, I purchased these synthetic replica cat whiskers from AliExpress, and I'm applying a few around his ears with clear Gorilla Glue. I've noticed throughout the period that I've been working on this project that the latex material draws in any dust that's in the air. There have been times where I've left him on the side to dry for a few days or so, then I've come back to find him completely covered in dust and tiny fibres. I really want to put him on display, so I've decided to get him a display case to tackle this problem. I found this wonderful large glass bell jar on a shop on eBay. I'll put the link down below. I also thought it could look quite nice with some dried flowers in the display, so I bought this beautiful bunch of dried flowers from AliExpress. Oh wait, that's nothing like the picture. Really? Luckily though, these other flowers that I bought from a different seller came in great condition. I had this small tree slice hanging around the house and thought it would be perfect as a little stand within the bell jar. And I'm just playing around with the position of the flowers until I'm happy with the presentation. He's really good, I love him. Using the fabric latex was a good call. It made a really good base and prevented any of the liquid latex from dripping inside the electronics. I'm happy to see that powdering the colour onto his eyelids and beak not only looks really nice and smooth, but hasn't scratched at all since he's had his batteries in and has been moving around. Also, I love the look of the mohair, whiskers and white eyelashes together. They're the perfect finishing touches. There are a few things that could definitely be improved next time though. I think the rib bones are a bit too prominent and he could do with a bit of extra flab around his tummy to even everything out a bit better. Also, I think he'd look good with some skin folding over the bottom. I feel it's a little too rigid as it is. The feet are great, but when he moves around a bit more vigorously, he can topple backwards. So I'd either have to create a support for the back or have the feet in a slightly different placement. The tip of the ears can curl backwards, which isn't a massive deal, but if I wanted them to be more pointed, I could create a wire attachment onto the ear pegs, which would keep the latex straighter. Lastly, there's a small amount of discoloration on his forehead. I'm unclear if this is because I didn't mix the pigment in properly with the latex, or if it's the clear glue that's caused the problem. I'm going with the former because I can't see any other discoloration anywhere else where the glue was applied. Overall, I'm really happy with the results. This was my first time working with latex, so it was really fun trying out a new medium, and he looks really funny and nice. He is still sneezing though, so maybe it was a skin condition after all.